Hey guys, Chad Corbett, co-founder at Trainer and wear many hats here at All the Leads. I'm really excited today. We haven't done one of these in a while. This one's going to be a little different format, but this is part of our probate case study series. Today, we're joined by David Pinnell, who is a realtor and investor, but most importantly, a certified probate expert, and just David. When it comes down to it, you'll understand more once we jump into the call. David was generous enough to give us an hour of his time. It's a very wide-ranging conversation. We did go down a lot of rabbit holes because there were nuggets there that I didn't want you guys to miss. Lessons that I've learned, lessons that he's learned, and stuff that anytime I see where I think you might benefit from our mistakes or what we did right, we kind of went off track on the conversation and had to bring it back. In a nutshell, just so you know what to expect, and before we jump in, David has been with us for just over a year, about a year and a week. He struggled getting this off the ground, only did 5 closings in 2018, but he's already done 22 closings in 2019, and he's on track right now to at least do 75 more in the second half because he started to gain momentum, and that's picking up. And based on the number of leads they have and their conversion rate so far, they think that they should be at 100 to 101. Income on that, as far as revenue on that, between commissions and wholesales, is going to be somewhere probably no less than $800,000, potentially breaking $1 million in his first full year of doing this. So he's a calendar year in, but it took some time to get started. In 2020, he'll start on January 1st and run this campaign throughout the year, and I'm sure he'll easily beat $1 million a year. So I'm really excited for you guys to learn from what David had learned from both his mistakes and what he's done right. I will say that in the beginning he tried to reinvent the wheel, as he'll admit. Then he went with the All the Leads system, and then he evolved above the All the Leads system. So now he's taken this to a level that it's so what he's doing is very complex, but he's built it slowly and in a controlled manner. And it's something that works for them. It's not something that we could just give to anyone because we all have different business styles. But anyways, don't get too wrapped up in exactly what David's doing, thinking that's what you have to do. Focus more on David's mindset, David's discipline, the habits that he has. And like I said, guys, there's a ton of nuggets in here. One thing I will say, I mentioned it toward the end of the video, but if you would like to connect with David, if you have questions, if something stands out to you that you want to hear more about, especially if you'd like to see more videos like this on that specific subject or topic, if you're on the blog, you can drop a comment below. If you're on YouTube, drop a comment. If you're on Facebook, drop a comment. Wherever you are, look below this video. There's probably somewhere to put a comment. And if you leave those, then we'll know what we need to do in future videos, or we can answer you right there. Maybe even schedule a live session where you guys can come and ask questions to David and some of our other veterans. Maybe we'll do like a veterans panel. But let us know what you thought of this. Let us know how it's looking in your business. And let's jump right in. Let's get to it. All right. Hey guys, thanks for joining us. My name is Chad Corbett. I'm the co-founder here at All the Leads. With us today is David Pinnell, celebrating his very first anniversary as an All the Leads subscriber. Welcome, David.
Yeah, thank you very much. I didn't realize it was a whole year. So
yeah, we looked it up last June 15th, I think was your start date. So we're just over the 1 year anniversary. That's not really the reason we invited David. David was nice enough to offer his time. He was on a mastermind call last week with a really interesting story about how he acquired a church and is, in my terms, wholetailing that. So he's basically closing on a wholesale deal and selling it on the MLS to get a higher premium price. And that's kind of how I reconnected with David. You did Probate Mastery back in February, I believe.
And I've been kind of involved with you guys for, I'm doing the same thing a lot of your participants are doing now. They hold off, and I kick myself because the pillar of a probate lead and what you've created is, it could be $1 million pillar for us. And that's what I'm so excited about.
Yeah. So David is one of our best, like most successful subscribers. And I think a lot of times, we don't hear from our veterans on the mastermind calls. We don't hear much from them. So thanks again, David, for giving us your time and letting us kind of look under the hood of what you're doing.
Okay.
I'll start with kind of throwing David under the bus. So he did sign up in June of last year. And when did your first call go out? When was your first letter sent?
Well, we made calls initially, but I got discouraged and I got scared. And I come from a background of calling expireds, but it's just a different type of call. So we put calls off probably until October, so almost 4 months after we bought leads from you guys.
Yeah. Now, the reason I threw David under the bus, guys, is it's such a common thing. Like even with agents and brokers and investors operating at a high level like David is. I mean, David, what was if you don't mind sharing, I mean, how many deals did you guys close last year with investment and brokerage?
64.
Okay. In your whole business or just in probate?
No, just the whole business.
Okay. Yeah, so he's running, and a lot of those were acquisitions and others were listings. So it's a blend. So he's running at a fast pace at a pretty high level. And still, it took some time to get his mindset right, to get into this and do the right thing. And as you saw in kind of the intro reel, some of the numbers, and we'll dig into those. But it's easy to see he's been successful, but it didn't come that easy, right? Like it took you a while to get in the mindset and adopt the system, and then it becomes fun and easy. And I just want to underscore that, like, sometimes these videos can seem like, well, that guy can do it, but he's X, Y, and Z. And we all have those struggles. Like, we all have to, we have to use discipline to create habits. So we get the behavior we need day in and day out to produce the results we all know we can get, but most of us don't. So I think it's good to have David here. Like, his summary stats might scare the hell out of some people and think, well, I could never do that. But he started where you're at. He started where we all started. Like, when I started this, I didn't even know what probate was. I came from resort real estate. So we all have to start somewhere. So we ran through the stats, but David, why don't you walk us through your first year in probate, like what that looked like? And as you brought this online as a system, and you're working with Liz, so you guys are kind of working a team, but just walk everybody through what your business looked like when you weren't doing anything, what made you finally take action, and then how did it gain momentum?
I probably learned about you guys probably 2 years ago, and I got on a couple of the calls, investigated it, and I thought it would be cool to do it. But I had expired leads and for sale by owner leads and other things coming in, so I didn't really want to add it to the business yet. And I thought it was expensive, but it turns out it's really not. After just a year of working the leads from you guys, it wasn't perfect, and we got stuck. We've done everything that you've told us not to do. And it multiplies every month, so you get lost real quick.
Yeah.
We've discovered that you got to have the calls with the letters, and you got to have it threw us into a hiring phase of actually hiring other agents. Before, doing 64 deals in 2018 was really just off of me and my effort.
Right.
In 2019, we're sitting about 22 probate deals closed. That's wholesaling. So, I mean, it's averaging still about 4 or 5 a month. But we have in the pipeline, like you were talking about, if we could just get 8% of that pipeline, it's going to be in the third and fourth quarters with our systems now. It's going to be anywhere from 68 deals to 125.
And what would you say, what's the split on those? So brokerage versus acquisition?
They're running about $11,000 per transaction.
But I mean, as a percentage, how many are brokerage deals, like listings versus acquisitions?
It's 60, 40, 40% listings. Normally the people do just want to cash out.
That's awesome. And so I've failed to talk about the market so far. I mean, you're in one of the most competitive markets in the country, both for investors and realtors. Oh, yeah. I know that there's at least 3 real estate investors associations right around you with like a combined 6,000 person, attendance. So, I mean, there are literally thousands of people right in your backyard looking for these deals. And you're still getting 60% of your deals on the acquisition side and listing the 40 that don't want to sell for that discount price, right?
Yeah, but we're buying them. We're getting the houses probably below 55% of retail. That's the
Wow.
difference. That's the difference in probate. And we go after foreclosure and post bankruptcy and loan modification stuff too, but those are always higher because they don't want to get rid of the house. Probate, there's not emotional attachment usually to the property itself.
Right.
Um,
So I find that 90% of this in probate, once you're on the phone, like once you're talking to them, it's easy. Like with the way we train people, like if you use the kind of the hub and wheel. So if you're coming from the center of the hub as the hub, and one spoke is brokerage, one is investment, and then you have your contractors, clean out crews, investment advisors, CPAs, whoever. But I find like what I found is when I quit being an investor, I quit being a realtor, and I began just being Chad. And I
yeah,
would reach out to these people. I found myself in really smooth, pleasant conversations. Before then, I was like, fall on my face. And I was like, I'm going to go in with my investor hat. And I would make an offer and break rapport. There's no way I was getting the listing. And when I finally learned like to cast a wider net and offer like a vertically integrated solution, that's when all these conversations just were fluid and easy, and I built rapport like instantly. So that I believe is the biggest reason. I'd like to hear your opinion, but you're in a hyper competitive market with more investor competition than realtor competition probably. But that's where the bulk of your business is still coming from that space. And if I had to guess, I'm guessing, well, I'll say there's two big factors at play there. One is your approach and your offer. Like you're offering something of value, but you're also offering something that they've never heard about this from anyone else. Everyone else says, we buy houses, we do this, we close.
yeah,
And you're focused on the people. The second part of that is just your tenacity and systemization of this. Like it's become a discipline in your business, and we'll show you guys that here in a bit. Like David has a phenomenal sequence. Like his follow-up sequences, you always hear the fortunes in the follow-up, and we know 83% of sales happen between touch 7 and touch 12, and David's proof of that. Like his sequence is working. And what I tell, like we have this conversation a lot on mastermind calls. Everyone says, well, what's the right sequence? The right sequence is call everybody until you've spoken to them and you know the situation. That's the best way to scrub any list. Talk to people. But I think those two things, like your approach and your tenacity, are the real big reasons that you are where you are today. Would you agree?
100%. When I told you I got distracted or discouraged, uh, I made those calls as a real estate agent to get that listing. As soon as I switched it to cash offer, we went with cash offer about 8 months, and we got enough deals. But after going through your probate mastery, I tweaked it a little bit more to be from David, from our sales guys. Come from the helping solution, not the realtor or the cash investor. But when we show up for the appointment, we show up professional. We don't show up in shorts. We don't show up in t-shirts.
That's something I never talk about. I don't think on any of these videos I ever have. I don't care how bad the house was, how bad the situation was. I showed up, and I usually like I would go to, if I'm speaking on stage at a conference, I'm wearing a pair of nice jeans, a pair of like leather, like Cole Haan shoes, a nice shirt, and a sport coat every time, no matter how hot it is. And it just makes people feel like, because you know what everyone else in town is wearing. At best, the realtors are wearing polo shirts, and the investors are usually dressed down beyond that. And that was a big differentiator for me too. Just kind of underscore that, because we hardly ever talk about it. But every single appointment I went in a sport coat, and it was no different than if I was going to speak on stage. Now, I didn't want to show up in a suit and overdress for my area. And it's going to depend on what's acceptable in your area. When I lived in Maui, if I showed up at work with a sport coat on, they would have laughed me off the island. There it was Tommy Bahama. Like that's you wore a silk or linen shirt. But I think that makes a big difference too. I think that, it's just perception, but people just trust that you've got it together if you're showing up as the professional and, not wearing it.
One statement you said, when you go to Home Depot and you're looking for the contractor, who's that guy showing up at 6 a.m. in that nice wrapped truck?
Yep.
That's the guy that you want to hire to do your contract. You don't want the guy showing up at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing in this industry, Chad, and it's changing. As a real estate agent, we have to be an iBuyer, which is a cash buyer these days. As a investor, you have to, in Texas, you can't wholesale property legally unless you are a licensed agent now. So,
right?
Yeah, they changed that a year ago. I mean, people still doing it, but if you're representing another third party on a wholesale deal, you need to be licensed now. And with all this AI automation coming on, all these discount brokerages trying to take our cut, it's up to us to learn these pillars and deliver that ultimate experience.
So do you have iBuyers actively competing with you right now?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Okay, so let's back up for anyone who doesn't know what that is. A lot of us in the brokerage space, we know about it because everyone is raising hell about it. But so the iBuyers are the companies like Purple Bricks, Open Door, Knock, Zillow, Instant Offers. They're industry disruptors. What's really fascinating about that is they've been able to raise a lot of these companies. All the ones I just mentioned have done a combination of venture capital and debt, upwards of $2 billion each. So you're talking about there's almost $10 billion in capital behind this push. So it's going to disrupt the markets, and it is. And I saw a report, I think it was on Inman yesterday, and they're just looking at MLS. But Zillow, investor, those iBuyers started to cut in. They took 11% market share last year. And that's growing. They're only in 20 markets, like across all of them. They're only in 20 markets nationwide. But in those markets, they're hard to compete with. So it's essentially a big private equity fund or a private equity funded tech company that is offering basically the Mercedes retail dealership model to homeowners. So if you don't like your home and you don't want to hassle with selling it, you can trade it in. We'll pay you basically not a wholesale amount, but they're paying 80, 90 cents on the dollar or more sometimes. And they've brought that model into home ownership. So people can literally trade their homes in, move into a brand new renovated house, then they'll renovate that house and sell it to the next buyer. So it's hard for a typical wholesaler, typical brokerage. It's going to get harder and harder to stay competitive in your marketplace because they can achieve almost the same retail price, but with all these other conveniences and benefits. Now, that's not to say that it's going to kill the industry. It's going to force innovation in the industry. And people like David, you're always going to be fine because you see it. Like you've already spotted it. You know your X factor. You know you've adjusted your offer. And it sounds like you're kicking their ass already. So it's going to be hard to compete with the practitioners that both in brokerage and in investment. The iBuyers are they're not going to make an impact on the businesses that should survive. The ones, if you're haphazard and you're just doing 12 deals a year because you get lucky and a few people, it's going to cut into that. But people who have really are really systematic in their approach and they're doing the right things for the right reasons, I don't think it's going to affect much. And David, you're great proof of that.
It's just showing up. Most of the people are showing up as employees now too.
Yeah.
If they're looking at the property, they're showing up as an employee, and it's all numbers to these companies. When we show up, it's about that person and their solution and their situation.
Yeah.
We're asking those questions, and then we're getting to know that relationship way deeper than an automated computer system can.
Now, have you had opportunities where you've met with sellers after the iBuyers and gotten feedback from them?
Yeah, and it's always fun to know that they've got those offers, and we're 20 cents below what they're suggesting, but they'll always go with us because it's the relationship that wins that deal. Typically, not always, but typically.
Well, that's great. I mean, that's got to be encouraging for everybody out there in those big major markets. Like, I think Maricopa was the epicenter of this trend. Like everyone started in Phoenix, Arizona, basically, and they've picked kind of the top 20 MSAs to focus on. But anyone who's listening or watching, if you're in Orlando or Phoenix or, those markets like that, where those folks, I know Charlotte and Raleigh are both, they're hitting it hard there. And I know friends are wholesaling hundreds of deals a year that are getting impacted. But it should be encouraging to all of you, like David's living proof that it doesn't have to be a huge impact, negative impact on your business. It might force you to be more professional and offer a higher level of service, which David did from the beginning. But pay attention. Like if you're doing the right things for the right reasons, you can always stay competitive.
And it just goes back to that same idea that I'm hearing from my business coaches, that you got to offer that Top Golf, that Uber Black Car, Apple retail experience to all your clients, even these probate leads. If they've already got their daily lives, they've got their work, and they're usually the PRs are busy with their lives, their family, their careers, that if we could just take this stress off, like you mentioned in the mastery, probate mastery, they tend to lean towards you 100% because you're already involved in their situation.
Yep. And it's a hard habit for both brokerage and investment. It's so hard for people who have already found success. I find with brand new people, like they'll jump right into our system. Like it's a proven, repeatable system that's been tested in every state in the nation. They'll jump in and they'll take off. And kind of pointing a finger at you. I mean, and there's been several people like that have come to us that are high producers already, that have killed it in FSBO, expired, absentee, vacant. Like they've been working these different lists so that all these variables about the house. That there's a motivation to sell. You go like, I'm a realtor, I'm an investor, go straight to the real estate. And those folks just get, just beat to death. And then eventually a lot of folks will come back and say, okay, let's just take the all the leads approach and try this thing. Let's try that service wheel and do it. And it's always that's one of the favorite parts about this whole venture for me, is not it's not a told you so, but I'm like, yes, you finally got that. Like, and I was the same way. Like I'm high analytical. I would try everything and I tracked everything. And it took me 6 months to get through my thick ass skull. Hey, listen. And when I did it the first time, the right way, I told in Probate Mastery, David, you heard the story. It was about Pam, the lady whose mother had a stroke and they didn't have any liquidity. And she was getting kicked out of a hospital, but couldn't afford to go into long-term care. And I very quickly came up with the solution. And that was my aha moment. I'm like, that's what I need to be doing. I'm focused on me and what I can do for you. I can do this. I can do that. And with Pam, like that shift, that the one that unlocked it all for me was, I need to focus on Pam, because she's the one in a crisis right now. And she doesn't give a damn about what I can do unless it's for her. And we see a lot of folks get caught in that. They're like, well, I've been in real estate for 20 years. I know how to do this. Just give me the damn leads. And then they'll get going and they'll come back and say it doesn't work. Now, my favorite ones are the ones that raise their hand and say, Chad, this just isn't working for me. And I can say, okay, tell me what you're doing. And usually in the first 2 or 3 questions, it's like, aha, you reinvented the wheel, didn't you? And if we make those adjustments and get back to what we find is working in every state, almost you can be successful in any market. I haven't been skunked yet. I thought Colorado was going to skunk me. That's a super competitive market because of the way they record their data. But even in Colorado, we have virtual wholesalers, brokers, and local investors, all three, that are incredibly successful in those markets. So it's not the easiest business in the world, but when you get your approach right, it can be. For me, it was the most rewarding and the most fun I ever had in residential real estate. I never fought anyone on price. They trusted my advice. They looked at me as an actual advisor, not as someone they were going to pit against 6 other people in the next 12 hours. Like I've in FSBO expired, I've been in front of sellers that literally had appointments stacked up like 7 realtors in a row.
Oh yeah.
And it's not in me to do that, man. I don't beg for business.
No.
And with probate, I've never had that. I've never, like, even on acquisition, like I know that I've had competition. It's usually from a realtor they already knew. It wasn't from somebody who was prospecting.
That's right.
And we got them all anyways.
Yeah, we went on that yesterday. I told you when we had a brief conversation, I was heading to one yesterday, and
Yeah.
and they had a realtor there. But instead of directing the questions toward the seller, I questioned the agent a lot because that's proper etiquette. But she didn't know anything about the property, didn't know the square footage, didn't know the prices in the neighborhood. So at the end of the appointment, I'm talking to the seller, and it's just that knowledge level that is going to separate us uh, to convince them to either sell it as a cash deal or to make it a listing. And they are going to eventually, some of them do have their realtor friends, but they could see clearly that she was not prepared for listing that house.
Yeah. And that I always try to, we talk about it in mastery, and on the mastermind calls, but if you ever do have, whether it's an investor or a realtor, put them in front of you, give them the appointment first, but set it up with the seller. Be like, well, that's great. I think you should meet with as many people as you can. So you'll see the value when we meet on Friday at 3. So
Yeah.
Can you meet with them before Friday at 3?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And you create so much curiosity in all the things that you offer, the options you offer. They're not going to sign an agreement. I've never had this bite me, actually. I've never had anyone say, well, we signed with her. I've had the opposite. And you heard some of those stories. Like the one guy, he crossed his arms and he shook his head and he's like, I don't know what the hell we're going to tell Nancy. And he pulled the listing agreement out and started signing it himself. And before that, on the initial phone call, the objection I got was, we don't need a realtor. We've used the same one for 28 years. And she's our neighbor, so we have to list with her. But I got face to face, and that was how I knew. He said, I don't know what the hell we're going to tell Nancy. But so even if you have competition, put them in front of you. And when they see the contrast, like when they see like one person's offering one thing and has a very narrow skill set versus a broad offer, you're focusing, on the people and the situation and what their goals are within that. And you have a solution for no matter what could come up. It is night and day. That's how you compete with iBuyers. You compete with thousands of investors, thousands of real estate agents. How many agents are in your local board?
Oh gosh, 21,000.
Yeah. So you got 21,000 real estate agents, 6,000 or 8,000 real estate investors. I mean, You're competing with 30,000 people, and you're still doing 6 deals a month off of one list, and you're doing one county now, right? You're just,
We actually reduced, and that we reduced down so we could audit all our leads. So we'll actually bring them back on, but we have in the system, not to go forward a little bit in this talk, but we have like 4,000 leads that didn't answer the phone. So why we do need to pause a little bit. I told Liz, pause it just for, give me 3 weeks. I'm going to go through these and probably get another 20, 30 deals out of them.
yeah.
Or at least another 300 nurtures out of them.
So let's go back to our timeline. So you signed up in June, hit the phones early, did it your way, got discouraged, did nothing till October. Then you started it back up between October. I think you took Probate Mastery in February. So walk us through, like, let's pick back up on that timeline, how it picked up steam and when you really started to feel the momentum and things started to click for you.
Liz and I were still trying to keep things separate on the investment side and the list side. She had thrown me some listings here and there, but she still wanted to flip houses.
Let's talk about your challenges there. Like, be specific, because there's a lot of people that are going to be watching this that are probably taking the same approach. And something I struggled with big time was a good friend of mine started in here in Roanoke in investing the same time I did. He's a different person. I'd spent my whole career negotiating price up. Like I was like, let's get you in a luxury beachfront condo. Oh, and do you want, this? And so I was always, to me, negotiation was an upward thing, where in investing, it was downward. And it just wasn't like, just wholesaling was not my thing. He's really good at it, and he's built a team, and they're doing, 150 deals a year now in a small market. But what we tried for I'm going to say no less than 300 leads. His acquisition manager would go on the appointment, make an offer. If they flinched or didn't take the offer, then he would refer it to me. Yeah. I made it a point. The second I got the text message, I clicked it and called. Like I was literally calling before he left. He was backing out the driveway and I was on the phone. And then I tried letting it go 30 minutes, letting it go one day. Out of 300 opportunities, I never listed a single property referral from that strategy. And it was because Mike was offering a very one-sided offer. We buy houses, we close fast, and we're not bullshitting. And they're not. They do it. But what happened is when they only had one thing to offer and that one thing wasn't valuable or it was perceived as predatory, then I got his reputation. So it didn't matter what I said on the phone. I had the same reputation that the acquisition manager had. And what we found is you have to kind of identify in the conversation, you have to know, right? Or you either have to offer all the options or you have to back up in the conversation and see where that split is. Like, is there equity? Is there motivation? And depending on those answers, you decide, do we go in a brokerage route or are we going the investment route? And if you're not doing that, if you're doing it at the appointment, then you damn well better be able to offer all those options yourself. And I think that's probably what you guys found, right?
That's what we found exactly, because we actually send 2 guys to an appointment, one that stays as the good guy and one as the investor.
Yeah,
and it works, and it's a good training option as well. So we could train our guys to offer. So we offer the full listing price at whatever percentage. Just cash out, so they can list as a discount listing if they're going to go below market. We're not going to do a regular listing on someone that wants a discount listing fee too. Yeah. And or then we'll make a cash offer that is within reason what they're asking for if we could buy it. So it's 3 options, and we're not trying to be the ambulance chaser or predatory on it. This is what we offer as a company, and it's going to solve your problem.
Sure. And the transparency, that transparency results in ultimate trust. Like you start to build rapport on the phone, but when you show up and you've got, like I use it, and you guys hear me talk about this, you can search it. If you go to alltheleads.com and search seller net sheet in the top right, you'll find a copy of this. But we have a net sheet. It's just a simple spreadsheet I made when I figured this out. And I would run those 3 scenarios just like David's talking about. So it would be, if I knew I was listing it and they just weren't motivated enough to sell at a discount, it would be something like low, recommended, high. If I'm going to offer options, it might be, cash, as is, where is, and retail, kind of like David just said. But you give them those 3 scenarios and let them self-select. So they don't flinch like they do. And if you just throw out a wholesale number, they're like, holy shit, you're trying to steal the place. What are you, a crook? Yeah. But if you show them the retail number and then like they disqualify themselves because they don't want to spend the money or spend the time. If they're not willing to take that risk and someone else is, then that's off the table for them. And you just kind of walk them down. I bought every house I've ever bought that way by telling them exactly what I was going to do with it. I'm like, I'm going to turn around and flip this for another 20 grand. And you should know that. And there's actually disclaimers in my paperwork. Like, I'm doing this with the sole intent to make a profit. Here's what I think I'm going to make on this, because I never wanted sued. If I ever got sued, I was just going to hand that to the judge and be like, don't tell me I didn't disclose it. That's and right. The amount of trust that comes along with that, it's hard for anyone to compete with you. If you're doing business like this, guys, it's hard as hell for anyone else to compete. Like, because you're showing them, you're like, listen, we're going to focus on. Yeah.
And the one thing that we do also on top of that layer is we leave them a cash offer in hand. So nobody else leaves, they always give verbal offers.
Yeah.
So if that's the one thing people take away from this video is always leave a handwritten offer. And we always put at the very top, all closing costs paid, no realtor fees, everything paid except for the back taxes. But the taxes are usually paid through the probate estate, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and man, there's so many nuggets in this already. Like, never ever go on an appointment without pre-filled paperwork. Yeah. Even if you don't know what you're going to do, take a listing agreement and have it all pre-filled based on the tax card. You can always scribble it out in initial changes if you have to. If something doesn't
even
match.
if the number's real big.
Yeah, and the same thing. Like, take a purchase agreement that's filled out for that specific property. Take a listing agreement, and for me, that goes in the left-hand side of the folder, and whichever one I think is most likely to be the outcome, I'll put on top. So it either says purchase and sale agreement or exclusive right to represent seller agreement, and that folder gets opened up and slid over in front of the decision maker during the face-to-face appointment. And I mean, David's heard this in Mastery. I play a game. I've never had to ask anyone to do business in probate. Like, they either pull the paperwork out or they say, okay, well, where do we sign to get started? Right. And that's when I know my job's done. But never go on an appointment ever without your paperwork done. And my goal is less than 1 hour, one stop listing or acquisition and see the seller at the closing table. And that's how all but two of my deals have gone. One was a very elderly couple and they didn't trust my vendors, so I had to go back with the vendors and pay them, and then they paid me back. The other was a condo that had been heavily smoked in, and then we had to go back and do smoke remediation. Otherwise, every probate deal I ever did, I was one stop appointment, and then I saw the seller at the closing table. And that having paperwork allowed me to do that because I was nimble, right? It's a very fluid situation. You're like, here's your problem, here's a solution, here's problem, solution, sign this piece of paper. And
Right.
they select which one they're going to sign. I don't push them into it. I never try to have a predetermined outcome for myself. I'm like, I can help no matter what. I'll show up. You tell me how we work together. I don't care how we work together, just that we work together.
That's right. That's it. But we actually do 3 folders, not all in one folder. So we have a just cash out company, and then a property solutions company, which is the cash offer, and then a listing from Cities Real Estate. So it's actually.
Are you doing that? That's under 3 different brands?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not confused, and we get to separate that we're, we don't want to be like we're going after their equity. I'll tell them that.
Yeah.
I have to make $25,000 profit, and this is what it's going to take to make this money on this house. And a lot of those times, those net sheets on the seller sheets are only about 8 to 10% difference.
Yeah.
And they don't want to go through the hassle to make $8,000 typically.
The other thing I find that's really common when you have a lot of heirs, like when you have more than, I'll just say kind of based on experience, when there's more than 3 people that are recipients of the proceeds, that seems to be the mark where they're like, screw it, just get it done, because they're going to get $3,000, $4,000, $8,000, and they're like, what? It's not going to be life changing for me. If you like him, just hire him, let him do it, or just sell it to him. So the more heirs you have, the more, I guess the less price sensitive people are.
And this all boils down to the number one secret in real estate. When they trust you, we call it when they offer that bottle of water in a listing appointment, you've crossed that bridge of trust.
Yeah, that's a good trick too.
I always tell, this is a nugget for you. I mean, I went on a couple appointments in the beginning with Liz, and she'd always turn away the water. And that is the critical moment in that appointment.
Yes.
If someone's offering you something, I don't care if it's a pencil, take it, because that's when they establish friendship with you.
Yeah, and there's a lot of subconscious communication going on there.
Yep.
And that, like, you bond. And you're so right. Anytime anyone offers you anything, be like, absolutely, that sounds wonderful. Yep. And I don't care if you're allergic to peanuts and they offer you a peanut butter cookie, feed it to the dog under the table, but take the damn cookie.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's the transition. So
okay, so we're going down all kinds of rabbit holes, but this is because we find these great nuggets. So we're back to you got to a point where you learned not to do the investor or realtor approach, but to send 2 people on each appointment. And then what started happening?
Well, to go back to when we bought the leads, we went through a period of, I could call these people, I got discouraged. We sent letters for probably 4 to 5 months with little or no return, because it took about 3 months to even get a response from people. So once we started getting responses and buying a couple flips and getting a few listings, we had some cash to start hiring the ISAs, inside sales agents.
Yeah.
In Texas, you can't have an ISA. They have to be licensed to have these conversations with people. So they were only calling for the sales acquisition side, the cash side. And then if it turned out to be they want a listing, I'd go with them on the listing appointment.
Right.
Fast forward, we got rid of all the lower producing people. They walked themselves out eventually. So we have 2 people that got licensed. So now I have a team of 4 people that could do the listing appointment, do the cash offer, or do the listing at a discount if their equity is not there.
Okay.
So now it's back to, now we're in that phase of systemizing it. But we had to stop the letters for a while, pick up the calls, learn how to hire people to make calls and what type of person we were looking for to be in our sales room.
And let's talk about that. That's another rabbit hole. I get that, but this is a great conversation. So hopefully you guys are still with us and don't mind me sidetracking. ISAs, and as David clarified, an inside sales agent. That's basically your outbound prospector for anyone who's not aware of that. It's one of the most challenging hires in real estate because you really need someone who almost has a skill set as good as yours so they can build rapport and get engagement, but not so good that they think they can go do it without you. And that's one of the big challenges. Like, is a lot of people use, offshore VAs for $3 an hour to do their ISA service. And it's, you're damn lucky if you get a half a percent conversion. Like if you can turn
Yeah, it's real hard.
200 leads into an appointment. A good ISA will track, 4 to 5% conversion. Like you can make 100 calls. And if you're getting 5 appointments off 100 calls, you've done a pretty damn good job with hiring and training.
We went through that phase too, Chad, because we were paying $15 an hour for about 4 months. So it was a discovery on that side that we can't pay for that type of conversion. We weren't getting the conversions. That
Yeah.
we probably get 2 appointments or 2 deals a month from these guys, which that was costing us $2,500 to $3,000 a person. We had 5 at one point.
Wow.
So
and what was the shift? Like, what did you learn there? And what are you doing right now?
The perfect ISA for a probate, since it is a probate call, it's going to be a longer convert. So you have to have that farmer mentality.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go into probates thinking they're going to be like expireds.
Right.
Or a 5-week for sale by owner conversion where you may get the listing if you go out 3 or 4 times to meet the for sale by owner. These probates are always delayed by court dates, timelines, family, and it takes that certain. If you're looking at it, to tell you the ISA you need about 50-50 dominance, but you need that compliance, and that's a farmer, somebody that doesn't mind calling someone for a year to get the timeline update.
Yeah.
And eventually get that appointment. When we get closer within a 45-day period, that's when I'm going to call and start closing them for the appointment.
Now, tell us about how you trained your ISAs, both the wrong way and the right way. Like, talk about your training and what resources you used. Was it anything from all the leads that you kind of used to teach them, or is that what you used and then you taught them?
Well, I was real big on expired for sub owner prospecting, and I was in a coaching program for 5 years that taught me communication styles and way to use my words, tie downs, NLP stuff. But to be honest with you, me and Liz were still kind of separated on who was in charge of these people when she hired them. She wanted to hire them and teach them communication and calls and sales. And so I stepped back just to watch it kind of mature, and it didn't work out. So she took over. So now we're after a year of doing this, she's in operations. She stays on her fence, and I completely took over scripts and calls and nurtures. And operations side is not allowed in our sales room. And if we bring them a deal out of the sales room, that's when they start messing with it. But my sales guys do not do anything with the transaction from the time we get the offer signed.
Yeah, that's good.
They just stay right in sales mode, and we have 941 conversations going on with probates.
Wow. So have you read Good to Great, right?
Yes, long time ago.
So like what David's talking about reminds me of, so Jim Collins is a highly respected author and wrote a book called Good to Great. And one of the basic premise of that book is make sure you have the right asses in the right seats doing the right things. And it sounds like you went through that growing pain of figuring out, you had 2 asses in one seat with you and Liz. And once you got out of each other's way, it was like, oh, that's how we should have done it. So we all have to learn
that. Just
that.
said, Chad, last night, she's like, I need to get back on the phones and do some converting. I was like, no, you don't. You stay over there, and I'm going to build this sales room up properly.
Yeah, no, that's good.
A lot of money on communication, and that's where I focus. 7:30 role play, 8 o'clock on the phones for 4 hours, and appointments after that. We just run it very disciplined, very militaristic.
So when you found your two ISAs that you have now, like what was your training like for them? Did you work with them one-on-one? Did you put them through our role play calls? Like tell us about how you got them up to speed.
No, I didn't, Chad. I kind of backed off because she did do the hiring on that.
Okay.
But we handed them a script book and said, here, call these people. I wasn't real involved because I was still trying to hammer the listings and do my side of the business. But it kind of just merged together over the last 6 months, and that's the benefit of all this.
Yeah.
Uh,
Now
our roles.
I'm curious. What I found when training ISAs is that, I mean, it obviously depends on their skill level, but for most entry level ISAs, it's incredibly hard to get them to the point where they can go deep into a conversation and like build real rapport and convert. And I messed up there. Like when I trained my first couple ISAs in the probate space, I had them trying to do the job of the agent or the investor. I had them trying to like fully qualify and build rapport. And that was a big mistake. What I found is you got to back up some, and you basically just highlight, is there real estate? Is there motivation? Set the appointment, and then set them up for the bigger conversation. So is that your all's approach? You kind of keep it superficial, and then you step in and build the relationship from there.
Yeah, that's the way it's going. But hiring the people off of the right personality profile.
Yeah.
And the correct culture. You know,
Are you guys using DISC or Myers-Briggs, or what do you use for profiles?
Going through Wise Hire for them to initially fill out the application. And then it's 25% we use the DISC to figure out if they're going to be a farmer or have enough D in them to drive the conversation. Because I could teach scripting all day long. And then it's the culture. Is the person going to be living from gratitude, not for themselves when they go on the appointment? We don't want that social media butterfly that needs all the attention. We want that person that's going to help be that Chad, be me, or be that person for that solution.
Yeah.
Any type of pillar. I mean, it works for all the pillars, not just the probate.
It does. Once I figured this out in probate, it didn't matter. You put someone in front of me that has real estate that needs to sell it, and I tell people all the time, like the empathetic approach that we teach in all the leads, it could be a huge coaching company on its own. Just that approach can change any salesperson's life. Like if you're more focused on them than you are yourself, and you already have a solution for all their potential problems, you're going to be nimble and fluid, and you're going to blow their socks off because they'll never have met a salesperson like that. And it's that empathetic, like to me, that's what it came down to. Like to the point, like it's a huge part of my life. Like the empathetic approach it's made me so much money in real estate. And you see so many of these, like a lot of coaches are gurus, you know, it's like, it's the, you got my money in your pocket kind of attitude. And that is the worst approach, in my opinion, to any business and any kind of real estate business, where if you look at it as, you know what, you have problems, I have solutions. And if I do a good job, I'll get paid for that. And it doesn't matter if it's a commission or a $30,000 wholesale fee. I don't try to determine that. I just try to help them, and then I get paid. And that's how it's always worked. And I've never had trouble. Business always comes in, and I don't go beg for business. And so
you cultivate that relationship, even if you don't get that deal, they look at you professional, and then you can put them on your archive list or your SOI list. Even if you didn't buy the house, the numbers may not be correct, but the relationship is.
Yep.
Out of 941 people, as we develop those relationships, let's just imagine I get 10% referrals from the next 10 years out of that list.
Yep. So there's a gentleman named Roger Alisi, who's one of our longest term customers ever. And he's probably the best at doing that I know of. Like he treats every probate lead like a personal relationship in his SOI.
That's the secret.
Influence. And I mean, he's got tons and tons of residual business. And unfortunately, I think Roger's gotten busy and we don't see much of him anymore, but he's been with us. And I mean, he's one of our biggest ambassadors. And, you know, he started out not knowing how to do this either. And he struggled. Well, he struggled until he got on the phones. I think his first phone call, he uncovered like an $8 million commercial out parcel.
Nice.
And that was some good positive reinforcement to get back on the phone. But the net result of that for him has been a legitimate brand and reputation in his community. All the attorneys know. Send your divorce, your bankruptcy, your probate, just send them to him. Like he knows how to handle folks in these situations, and it's paid off for him in massive ways.
To give you an example, we were dealing with a family that wasn't cooperating, and just through past experience, the attorney referred us. They actually could sign on this probate, so we're buying something that $60,000, and we're immediately wholesaling it for 90, off of something that these siblings couldn't agree on, but the attorney knew how good we were, so we ended up getting a deal that we prospected 8 months ago that just by the grace of God, it landed back on our desk through your leads, but through the attorney knowing us, how professional we were when they actually filed probate or went through that process. So
Yeah.
it worked.
Does. So I know, so you're obviously a big systems guy. So you got this thing back on track. You got the right ISAs and the right seats. You and Liz kind of took on your roles and got out of each other's way.
Yep.
Then you started to look at how can we fine tune this? Like the checks start rolling in and you're like, all right, how do we get the most out of this? So
Correct.
I know you've got screen sharing ability. If you want to show us what system you're building. And if you can, show us your vision for where that's headed. And I want to preface this, guys, like David he's spent a considerable amount of money and time getting his own system. We provide you a free CRM within all the leads. We provide your leads in a very basic CRM. What I don't want to happen, especially for you guys that are high analytical, don't look at his system and go, oh, I got to go get that first. This is, David's setting this stuff up 8 to 12 months after he got things rolling. So go prove that you can do this, and then you'll know what tools you need. And in David's case, our CRM just wasn't specific. It wasn't customizable enough for him to achieve the really aggressive marketing sequence that he's about to show us. So don't feel like you have to go, build software and do all this. Get it right. Like use the system first. And then when you're at the point where you're doing 6, 7, 8 deals a month, then yeah, you can afford to go build software and you can afford to go, lay out a complex system like this. So tell us what we see here, David.
Absolutely. So just to give you an idea of how we filter, we actually purchase the leads from you guys, but we put them into a third-party dialer that we all work off of different folders. So y'all see this right here?
Yeah.
Okay, so we dump everything into a probate bucket, and that includes probate and affidavit heirship. So right now, over in the right corner, you'll see, let me close the chat down. This is unanswered probates, 354.
Unanswered meaning you haven't been able to reach them.
Yeah, correct. And some of those from counties that we lost some sales guys in that were on those folders. So we actually reorganized them into one big folder so that we don't have any lost leads anymore if we lose somebody.
Yeah.
So each salesperson is assigned to each touch. So like I'm assigned to probate one. We're all assigned to first touch, and then as the day goes down, we'll call. So in second touch, there's out of the audit ones that we're going through right now, we have 608 here that we have not reached. But if we reach them and they say they do not have a house to sell, they move to an archive folder. They may just be blowing us off like they don't want to sell a house, so we're not buying furniture per se. If you walk into a furniture shop, you're always going to say no.
Right.
I want to get bugged. So we'll put these on a voicemail drop or delay every 90 days and try to pull something out of there. Same with the touch. This is just the dialer CRM.
Now, is this your touch represents a week, a month? What's the interval?
We hit them every week, so probably daily, I guess.
So this is
we want to get in touch with them as fast as possible, as fast as we buy them from you. So we're getting every 2 weeks, probably 180 per county. We did reduce down to one county recently with all the leads because we got behind a little bit. But we're just trying to clean up at this point. But we're trying to get a hold of them in the first 2 to 3, 4 days of getting that. Because once we get a hold of them, they say, yes, I have a house to sell. We poured them into a Sierra Interactive, which is in our dialer. We could assign them to each agent by a zap. So we could zap the information, and they come over here to Sierra, which if you're just starting out with this, it's a little more than what you need.
Right.
But we'll put them into a filter system. You don't see the seller filters here, but we have it all lined up where we're actually getting them built out for the seller probate bucket, where we'll put them in statuses if they're 90 days out, 30 days out, or even 180 days out. And the filter is going to tell us when to call them and when to send them a letter by a tagging system.
Yeah.
But out of all the people that we've talked to in the last 6-7 months, we have 941 conversations going on. And I would say 75% of them are still in qualified status, where we don't have a timeline, a court date, all the heirs on board to sell the property, or some other objection, really a condition they have to meet before they could sell the property.
Yeah.
In our prime status, we have 48 that are actively going to sell a house in the next 60 days, and we want to stay in front of them or get them on an appointment.
Yeah.
So we can make our offer for business.
So you get the list, you immediately hit the phones as hard as you can. You're dropping a letter. What's your mail sequence? Are you doing 30-day spacing, and how many letters are you doing in your sequence?
We're about to change it to mirror and match it's going to be a little messy for the third quarter, but we're going to try to drop a letter. We're going to do an email, then drop a letter that arrives 3 days after we send that email, once they're in our CRM. But then we're going to follow it up with a call as soon as they get that letter. So our system.
I'm kind of letting the cat out of the bag here, but
Yeah,
we're going to push email addresses to you here in the next few weeks.
that's badass. That's gonna relieve a lot.
We've been doing a lot of testing in the background with phone numbers and emails, and something we've never provided because we never were comfortable. I just wasn't comfortable with it, but it's something that we found a way to.
Times the amount for the lead. Don't tell Liz.
But so it's something that we can provide to you guys at no extra cost, and we're going to start pushing that through with your phone numbers. So we're always trying to get better at what we can do to help you raise your contact rate. So if you're skip tracing to get those emails now, we'll take a step out of your process, and
Nice.
That's coming real soon.
Hey, and just to back that up, and what I've learned from probate though, it's nice to have the phone number. Do not text these people, and do not email them unless you have a conversation with them. I would say be very cautious with the data you have.
Yeah, I agree. And that's one of the reasons we've always withheld that. And it's, with the email addresses, it's got to come with a certain amount of coaching. And it's like, here's proper etiquette for this. Don't go shoot yourself in the foot before you get started.
I promise you, any of your guys listening to this, or when you release them, if they choose to drop an email before they have a conversation, they're never going to get the appointment. Never.
Yeah.
I would hold. I love the information because I could retarget with that information.
Yeah.
And keep an impression in front of them, as we talked about earlier. But your coaching members or your clients need to really understand that if they're not willing to make that phone call, they really don't need to have these leads. And if they're just going to send the letters, I have you guys send them. They need to incorporate the call before the email, and if you drop a letter, try to call them 3 days after you send the letter.
Or before, or sooner, right? Like within 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about that relationship and that human behind you. You have a human being dealing with a death in the family. They've been assigned to administer this probate. You've really got to understand their perspective. And if you try to just spam them and market to them to get the appointment, you're just going to fail 100%.
Yep.
I can't stress that enough. And I try to put that in our system. that, yeah, I could text all these people, but I'm not going to
Yeah.
unless I have a relationship with them.
That's great
I
advice.
will drop a voicemail to them because they don't know that I didn't call them.
Yeah.
So,
So we're coming up against our time. We've got just a few minutes left here. I'd love for you to share your vision
okay.
of where this is going for you. So tell us about, I mean, you can see some of David's numbers here. I mean, this is where he's been in the last 12 months. Tell us, like, run through that with us, show us what you've done, and then more importantly, show us your vision for the next 12 months.
Perfect. Yeah, just real quick, I lost a lot of money trying to learn this because I went against what Chad was talking about. We spent about $130,000 in 2018 and 19 figuring out hiring people, but we made about 200. So we're positive 75. I paid off 2 investment houses with the money and built out an office to do this. But in the future, just in the third quarter of 2019 and fourth quarter to end the year, we have 941 conversations. Every week, we're adding about 30 people to the yes folder for selling a house. So let's say we get 1,500 people in there in the end of the year. If we get 8% numbers, as you state, we're going to see another 100 deals in the next 2 months from this stuff.
Nice.
And any pillar in business, what I've learned in business is that you need 50 deals from every pillar before you move on.
It's a good rule.
And that needs to be automated. So don't try to just get into these leads and say, oh, it's not working after 6 months. This is going to be an 18-month journey, and hopefully next year we'll talk and I'll tell you that we're closing 25 a month.
Yeah. So you're on track, you think, realistically this year to do around 680. Am I reading that right?
Yeah. That's just in the last 2 quarters. I think
that's the second half. So you'll be around 800 for the year.
Yeah, with the discovery period of still trying to get, we've discovered that it's better if we're going to do the cash sale or purchase, we're just going to wholesale it, not flip it, because it takes too many resources, too much cash.
Right.
So we've done 22 probates this year for listings and cash buys, and it's about 190,000 cash that we've made.
And about 60% of that was wholesale and 40% brokerage listings.
16 were cash purchases.
Okay. Wow, so it's even more than that.
I guess. Or 6 of them were listings.
And then you're showing a cost here of $4,000, but you've cut that down to, one county now. So you're at what, $700, $600?
Yeah, it's not going to stay that way though. We just did that so we didn't inundated. We have a lot of probate at that 4 or 5 month window. Once you have that lead, it's so important to get that relationship started in the beginning when you buy the lead. But that 4 or 5, 6 month window is when that sweet period is, when you're going to get that appointment.
Right.
And when they figure out their estate, they figure out the heirs, they figure out what they want to do. So we have over 3,000 leads in that period. So if we're going to continue trying to initiate conversation with new people, we're just going to be in the same bucket and not convert these people that we have.
Yeah. So coming into 2020, you're looking at $1 million plus pillar confidently from now on. And then tell us about what your plan is. Like, that's in one market. Like, that's in David's home market. He's on track to easily achieve $1 million a year, which we have several people doing. So you hit $1 million there. What's your scale? How do you scale that?
From that point, we're going to have a sales team that's going to be like the command center here. But we'll buy every county you have in Texas, all the major cities. Say we're buying, I don't know how many counties you have in Texas, but say you have 20.
All of them.
Buy those monthly from you, and then just have a listing agent and or a good wholesaler we could train franchise in those other areas.
Yeah, and then so David's looking at, he's thinking big, and that's something to pay attention to, guys. Like, we all have to start somewhere, and that's at zero for most of us. But he's gone from zero to procrastinating, struggling, to on track to do $800,000 this year and over $1 million next year. And he's already thinking about, okay, I'm in one city in my state, so I'm going to I'm going to dominate the state. And beyond that, like if that proofs out and he's got that expansion model in Texas, then he can branch out into other states that have, and I'm going to tell you, there's other states that are much easier to do business in than Texas. Texas, I mean, Trek is almost as bad as like California, and in some ways it's worse. Like especially when you get into investor stuff like wholesaling and creative financing, it's heavily regulated. So I mean, he can roll into Louisiana right across the border and scale this out. And we have some folks that do that on a small scale, 2-3 referral partners. But so that's kind of where David's headed. And unfortunately, we do have to wrap up. David, thank you so much for being so generous and letting us all kind of look under the hood. I want to give you the opportunity. Like, what do you think, folks? And I guess let's maybe it's one piece of advice, but what would you say is the most important takeaway for someone who's just getting started, someone who's been at it for a while but it's not quite meeting their expectations, somebody who's doing really well but knows they can be doing better, and then that other person that's just they've quit and they said it didn't work in my market. Like, what kind of advice do you give to people?
If they're saying they gave up or didn't quit, they didn't do one of the three things. That's either the calls, the letters, or combined as a system. And buy half the leads. If you offer half the leads in a month, just do half the leads, but get them monthly. Get them monthly, and figure out a system so you don't drop any in the cracks at 4 or 5 months after you get them. Because that's the sweet period. The sweet period is 4 to 6 months of probate. It is an 18-month convert, but most of them are going to convert in about 6 months because it takes that long to get through the court process or get things filed. So I would say just stick with it. Make sure you're making the phone calls. The phone calls are 80% of the workload, and then match them up with letters and emails and maybe text messages. But I would, unless you have a concrete relationship, I wouldn't take advantage of email or text because they don't need it. They get they get spam emails all the time. Yeah. Try to make the phone call. If you're not making the phone call, that's probably where you're failing.
Yeah. One last question. Two actually, a two-part question. What's been the hardest part of getting this going in your business, and what's been the easiest and most fun?
The hardest is when you get that person saying, my wife just died.
Yeah.
Or my mother just died. Why are you calling me? F off. You're just ambulance chaser. That is the hardest thing in probate. All you can do is just apologize, move on. The easiest thing is, man, cashing those checks. I've never been more profitable in a pillar and made more money per transaction. I mean, we've paid off 2 houses. We literally built out we spent 50 grand on an office space on a build out soundproof prospecting room. I mean, that's the fun part now because I have 12 stations to surround myself with guys to make calls. I know who I'm looking for. I know the relationship I need to develop with the probate leads. Now it's just a matter of doing that at a high level.
Yeah.
But start small. Start with 180 leads, but make sure you're calling them. If you get the email, you get the text. Don't go there until you have a conversation with them. Make sure you're calling them and work out that script.
All right. Well, we have to jump, guys. Maybe I'm sure you'll hear at least an annual update from David going forward. I'm excited to see where you're going to go. I'm excited to see how far you've gotten already. But I think next June the video is going to be even more exciting, and you might be in a $1.5 million office then. Who knows?
Yeah, we're putting together some cool stuff, and I just had a call, just real quick. I had a call with the CRM people, and it's just they're like, man, you're going to be able to tag somebody, and as soon as you tag somebody, the letter's going to populate, and it's just amazing that I know that my letters are going out the day that I need them to make the call, and I'll have true numbers in a year to tell you all about it.
Yeah. Well, David, man, I can't thank you enough. I think we could. I wish this could be a 6-hour conversation. For those of you that made it to the end, I hope you got a ton of value and learned from David. He does make it to mastermind calls every once in a while, but as you can see, he's very, very busy. Go ahead and drop some comments if you have questions for David. This will be, on our blog, on Facebook, on YouTube. Drop in the comments, and we'll try to get David to, you can jump in and ask, ask questions, and we'll try to jump in and get those answered for you. But David, man, thanks so much for letting us kind of get behind the curtain and look, take a really close look at what you're doing. That's it's obvious you've got a great abundance mindset, and thank you for sharing. And I'm sure everyone else is grateful for that. So we really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right.